If the LA Lakers want to have any kind of chance of having some kind of a successful season this year, they need to save their team right now. And as always, that revolves solely around Russell Westbrook, arguably the most polarizing player of the last decade in the NBA, certainly a very polarizing player since he's been with the Lakers in LA. This is a team that needs a change. And it's a really, really tough situation for them to be in because arguably they should have made this change months ago. Certainly after the way that last season went, despite the fact that Russ was very available, he was just not very helpful to the team. We've talked about this before, and now he has a hamstring injury, and that's a concern for a guy that hopefully they were going to be looking to trade. Now, we can do the whole monologue about, why Russ doesn't fit in LA and the concerns there. We can do all that over again if you want to, but really the point is now looking forward in the future for this Lakers team, like this is it for them. When you think about the fact that they do still have Anthony Davis, it's not like Anthony Davis is 36 years old. Like, yes, injuries have been a concern, but he can still be, a first or second team All-NBA caliber guy this year. And I'm certainly not counting out LeBron as someone that also is going to be an All-NBA caliber player this year despite his age. And those two building blocks, the foundation of that is worth something for this season, even if right now, as the roster is currently constructed, they are not contenders, which they just aren't, by the way. If you want to keep trying to convince yourself that the Lakers are a contending team with this roster, with Russell Westbrook there and the role players, the 3 through 12 part of this roster, if you want to convince yourself that's a contender, you're kidding yourselves. They're just not. This is not AD from the bubble. This is not LeBron from the bubble. And that team was better even with this version with Russell Westbrook on it. And so if you want to attempt to save that, the potential of All-NBA Anthony Davis, the potential of All-NBA LeBron potentially pushing you towards, a top 4 seed in the West and maybe being able to be a contender, Russell Westbrook needs to be moved. And of course, all this comes from a preseason that you guys know me, right? Like, I'm not going to put a ton of stock in a preseason unless it, as everybody does, unless it confirms something I'm already thinking. Preseason doesn't really mean much. But when you're as bad as the Lakers have been in the preseason, it matters. And it was weird because going into their final preseason game, it felt like there was some hope because Darvin Ham went to something that if they aren't going to trade Russ, they have to do. And that is Russ coming off the bench. He has to play with the second unit as much as possible to try and maximize whatever value he provides to the team. Now, before we get to the injury stuff, let me just speak on why that makes sense, right? Because some of you might be thinking, well, why does it matter if Russ does or doesn't start the games? Well, the main value that Russ can currently provide is he is still, outside of LeBron and Anthony Davis, their best source of individual offense. The problem is there's no point in him having the basketball when LeBron or AD are on the floor because they're just better than he is at creating offense. And off the ball, Russ is a serious issue. So the best way you can use him is by letting him be the Russ of old with the second unit when LeBron isn't on the floor. It's okay if AD's on the floor, but LeBron can't be on the floor because you're just always going to be a better offense with LeBron having the ball in his hands, which means Russ is just going to stand in the corner and brick jumpers. And so maximizing the amount of time when he's not on the floor with LeBron is the best way to use Russ right now. And of course, that means him starting off the bench rather than starting the games. And they went to that, and I was really excited for that. And I was like, okay, maybe this is a turning point. Maybe Russ, this will click for him. The coach is actually willing to step up and say, hey, we know you're really good, but it's better for us if you come off the bench. And then he gets hurt. And this is a really big issue for them because I think they need to trade the guy. And it seems like they've been waiting out this Russ situation because they feel like in a season which a lot of teams are going to be tanking for Victor Wembanyama, there's just going to be a better deal out there for role players and for veterans in exchange for Russell Westbrook and the 1 or 2 first-round draft picks they're going to be providing in the deal than Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. Because it feels like, if you go back and look at the rumors and the reporting around this, it feels like the Lakers were as close as you can get to making the Russ for Buddy Hield, Miles Turner trade as you can get without actually making the deal. And they backed out of it. And again, the mindset publicly is, oh, we're going to try and figure out the Russ thing and make him work with this roster. But privately, it seems like, no, they're going to move him. They just have to figure out what they think is the best deal moving forward. Because like Utah is going to start trading away veterans. There's going to be a surprise team out there that has a couple of injuries that you didn't think was going to be in on the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, but suddenly will be. And even with as kind of as much of a meme, really, those 27 and 29 picks have become, like, those are incredibly valuable draft picks. And the Lakers aren't willing to just give them up for Buddy Hield, Miles Turner. Now, granted, I think that would make them a better basketball team, unquestionably, if they did make that deal. But they believe that those 2 picks, which of course are the value in the deal, Russ doesn't provide any value in the deal, they're getting out of the money. Those 2 picks are worth more around the league than just Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. And so ultimately, that's the deal that they're waiting on. But the point of the video is, that's a deal that eventually they have to make. And the longer you wait, the harder it is to integrate those players and the harder it's going to be for them to be in a good position as they start moving towards the season. Like, look at the first 7 games on the Lakers schedule this year and tell me they're not going to start off like 1-6 or 2-5 or 3-4. Like, this is going to be a team that is going to be under constant pressure. They're already under a ton of pressure with how bad they looked in the preseason. And then you go into a season where they're going to be playing some of the best teams in the league almost every single game through their first handful of games in the season. Things are going to go south really quickly. And I think things are already kind of going south with some of the weird videos going around about Russ maybe not being super engaged with the team. And obviously now the injury and the trade rumors and the speculation, there's always going to be pressure pressure around the Lakers, but now there's even more. This is a team that they're kind of drowning here. Like, they need to make some kind of move, and I understand the mindset of waiting for maximum value when you're thinking about trading picks as far into the future as 27 and 29, presumably unprotected at the point in which LeBron is either no longer going to be there or he's going to be in his mid 40s at that point. I understand the mindset of waiting and getting maximum value out of those, but you're in a very dangerous place right now, especially as a team that is aging and has given away a lot of picks in the future, and that is the middle. Like, you're not a contender right now with the way the roster is currently constructed, and you're not bad enough, nor do you have the draft assets to make it worth it to be bad if at some point these guys do get hurt in the season and you want to just kind of shut the season down. And so you kind of have to go for this at some point, and going for it has to involve some kind of Russell Westbrook trade. But the problem is they've complicated this way more than it needed to be by waiting to move the guy. I mean, everybody knew months ago that not only did Russell Westbrook not want to be there, he got rid of his longtime agent, a guy that he's been with for years, because he wanted to leave and his agent didn't think it was a good idea because he was going to get bought out. And once you become a buyout player in the NBA, you're basically just a buyout guy forever, almost exclusively, with the exception of guys like Reggie Jackson. Like, once you become a buyout player, you're just signing minimum deals around the league. Like, think about Blake, think about John Wall, who's now signed basically a buyout deal. Reggie Jackson basically signed buyout deals for the first couple of years with the Clippers before getting a new extension. That's the whole reason that he split up with his agent at the time, because he didn't want to be in LA, and the agent thought it was a better idea for him to stay and try and make it work that last season and then try and get a bigger free agency deal. It's clear he doesn't want to be there. It's also clear he doesn't help the team, and it's clear that the Lakers would be better off if they did move him. And so it feels like just such a strange decision to wait this out, because there's no guarantee, even though logistically, logically, it makes sense to wait to get maximum value for the 27 and 29 picks, even if you are a worse team for the first 20 or so games of the year. Yeah, that makes sense, but there's no guarantee that there's going to be better value out there than Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. And I know that's a lot to give up, but again, that's just the situation that you put yourselves in if you're the Lakers, in this all-in kind of mindset. Like, you can't be the sixth seed. You can't be a play-in team with as much as you've invested in this team monetarily, in terms of draft picks, in terms of future assets. Like, you can't be in the middle. You don't have a choice. And so it's a weird back and forth for them mentally, where it's like, we want to be all in. No, we don't. We want to be all in. No, we don't. We want to get better value in exchange for our 2 future first round picks. And at this point, like, it kind of feels like LeBron, recommitted to the team extension wise, with the understanding that they were going to move those picks at some point. It just feels weird to wait this long, because now you've got the injury issue. Russell Westbrook's value is certainly not going to increase at any point, nor do I think that their record is going to be any good until they move this guy. I mean, you think about some of these other teams around the league that could possibly be looking to trade off their veterans. There's no guarantee that that happens necessarily, and it could be a situation where it's December and the Lakers end up doing the Miles Turner and the Buddy Hield trade, and that they could have done, at the beginning of the season or in the offseason, have these guys fully integrated and really have improved their roster, or one of those guys could get hurt. That would be incredibly unfortunate for them, but it's possible. Like, those guys could get injured, and then you've lost out on a situation I think really would have improved your roster because you wanted to wait and get maximum value. And the bottom line is, like, there's no other semi-contender out there that is as dramatic and has as little talent, quite frankly, as what the Lakers do. Like, I understand LeBron and AD, like, those guys are incredibly talented, and you can be a Russ fan if you want to, but like, the rest of the roster is just not very good. Like, there's some interesting flyers on guys, like Austin Reeves is fine, Damian Jones is fine, but like, there's just not good NBA players on this roster. That's why they need this Russ trade. They need these role players. They need a big that can protect the rim and roll to the rim, and they need a wing that can shoot and can space for them. That's why the Turner Hield thing makes sense. And ironically, it's just the reverse of what they did with the Westbrook trade in the first place when they brought him in. And it's just a really tough situation, because if you were to tell someone a couple months ago that the Lakers weren't going to trade Russell Westbrook away, and you gave them all these reasons, what's happening right now and what has happened to them in the preseason is the worst case scenario of events that could have followed Russell Westbrook not being traded from the Lakers this offseason, looking really bad in the preseason under a new head coach that is just unproven at this point. Like, we don't know if Darvin Ham's any good, and he's coming in with this new coach energy, and I appreciate what he's trying to do with Russ coming off the bench, but like, Frank Vogel won a title. Like, he was definitely a good coach, and maybe they just got tired of hearing from him, and that's totally fine. Sometimes you just need a new voice, but you go from, this new coach, and now you get off to a rocky start in the preseason where they're awful. Like, not just the score, and I know it's just preseason, AD didn't play in some of the games, and not everybody played, and I get that, but they just looked bad. Like, they looked unbelievably bad in these preseason games, and now Russ is dealing with an injury. You waited too long to make a move. Now the season has basically started, and you're looking at a roster that is not a contender. It's worst case scenario for them in terms of what they could have done with Russ, what they ended up doing with Russ, and how things are going to look moving forward. And they're just a cross off for me right now as a contender until they make the Russ move. And then even afterwards, like, depending on what that move is, there's just so many more talented deeper, well-constructed rosters in the Western Conference than the LA Lakers. Think about what the Warriors have in terms of depth, in terms of what their 3 through 8 or 9 part of their rotation looks like compared to the Lakers. Same thing with Denver. Same thing with the Clippers if they're healthy. Like, there's so many better teams, and even a team that I'm not super high on in the playoffs, like Minnesota, like they're just better. Sacramento, I think, is probably better than the Lakers as their roster is currently constructed, and that is a really difficult place to be in when you've got late 30s LeBron, when you've got an Anthony Davis coming back healthy that could be an all-NBA caliber player this season. And if it doesn't work this year, like, this is it. You know, this is their last chance for the LeBron and AD thing to get any kind of a benefit of the doubt. And if this goes poorly and they win 35 games this year, like, I don't know what team LeBron is on next year. I don't know what team Anthony Davis is on next year. I don't know where they go from here, because you never know what's going to happen with those two guys in terms of where they're going to be playing, injuries, age, all that stuff. Things are completely up in the air. And from the moment they made this Russell Westbrook trade, it has been a complete disaster in LA. Maybe they'll make it work. Maybe they'll make some changes, but they are in a really bad situation right now.